It was 2 weeks ago we had Chris Mannix on, and I wanted to know who Chris thought might win all of this, the bubble championship. And here's Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated.
Blazers, Sixers in the finals.
Well, yep. And then we had Chris Haynes, who was on yesterday from TBS. Charles Barkley said yesterday, if the Blazers face the Lakers, the Blazers will advance. They're all sampling Chris Mannix, who joins us now from the bubble. Now, were you serious that the Blazers and Sixers are going to play for the championship?
Let's just say I was. Let's just
no.
Go with that.
So you were sort of serious about that, or that was wishful thinking?
No, sort of serious, because I'm convinced that something crazy is going to happen in this postseason. I don't believe it's going to be chalk. And if you're looking for like a 1999 Knicks story, it's Portland. I mean, they've got the two guards that could win a series by themselves. And I mean, they're getting Yusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins back. So if you're looking for kind of a Cinderella tale, the only one that fits the narrative is Portland.
76ers, though, you like the 76ers, and that would be a surprise as well. But why the Sixers?
I think the East is more wide open than people think. I mean, I've said this to you before. I believe the three-point shooting is going to be way down this year, and teams that rely heavily on three-point shooting are not going to be as effective as they were before the pandemic. And Milwaukee, Giannis is not a three-point shooter, but everybody else is, with that group. So with that over-reliance, I think they're a little bit more vulnerable. And I look at Philadelphia, and I love the decision Brett Brown made to move Ben Simmons to power forward. I mean, Shake Milton is not a household name, but he was playing extremely well with Simmons out before the pandemic hit. He was shooting 50% from three in the 16 games he started this season. You move Simmons to power forward, his weaknesses as a three-point shooter are taken away. He can still run the offense. That to me is a terrific post-pandemic move by Brett Brown. So I think they're in the mix.
How's the setup in the bubble?
You mean like outside this door? Because I don't know. I mean,
when's the last time you were outside that door?
Actually, outside the door, Sunday. I mean, I take it very seriously how they don't want us to leave the door. So I've been in the door frame, but I have not stepped outside the door.
When can you step outside?
I believe it's Sunday night or Monday morning, whenever the seventh test comes in. You've got to have 7 consecutive negative tests. I believe I've had 4 up until this point, with another one coming this afternoon. So I've just been behind this door, and it's really, I said this to somebody the other day, it looks like my college dorm. I mean, it's like 2 unmade beds, bottled water on the floor, food packages everywhere, no girls. Like, that's part of the college sport experience. So here's what it is.
You're fitting right in there. I like it. I like it. What's your biggest question mark basketball-wise once they start playing at the end of the month?
I mean, it always comes back to the Lakers, because the Lakers, I'm very curious to see just how big an impact the Bradley Rondo losses are. Because you talk to some coaches and they'll say it's devastating. Avery Bradley, great on-ball defender. Rondo not having a great year, but Rondo's that one guy in the backcourt that LeBron just seems to trust. Like, he just always wants Rondo on the floor because, he's got that playoff experience and the ball handling. And look, playoff Rondo is a real thing. There are other coaches that are like, come on, the Lakers are LeBron and Anthony Davis. Everybody else is just kind of, a supporting character. Plug a player in there, they're going to be just fine. I'm very interested to see, how big an impact those 2 losses have, especially in the first round of the playoffs, and especially if that first round opponent is Portland. I mean, I think Rondo beats the 6 to 8 week time frame to come back. He is, I don't think I've ever covered a player that plays through injury and pain as often as Rajon Rondo. But if he misses that first round, I think a Portland matchup could be just really compelling.
We're talking to Chris Mannix, the senior NBA writer from Sports Illustrated. The snitch line policy. Can you use that? Would players or team officials use it as for a competitive advantage?
Yeah, most of the ones I've talked to have just kind of joked about it and said, I'm standing up in my hotel room with binoculars looking down to see if somebody is stepping outside the quarantine area. There have been reports. I mean, Dwight Howard came out and said somebody reported him for not wearing his mask on campus. But I don't see it being employed strategically. I don't think that when the playoffs start, you're going to have, Terry Stotts of the Blazers calling in on Anthony Davis, report or something along those lines. I think it's more about, just making sure these players are aware that these rules are in place. I mean, we've already seen 2 guys get dinged pretty significantly because of breaking quarantine. And the mask wearing, I've been told anyway, is the most common call to that snitch line.
But so Dwight Howard, was he at the pool? Was that when he was poolside with the DJ and he was the only guy there? Did the DJ snitch? Do they have a recording? Like, everything gets made public. Like 911 calls eventually come out. I'm wondering if somebody eventually gets the voice recordings of the snitch hotline.
That's a great question, and I'll actually ask it. I haven't asked that question because they go to great lengths to make sure it's an anonymous line. So I would imagine there are not recordings, but man, if there ever were and those ever got out,
I know.
that would be great.
But
great content.
It'd be great if Greg Popovich was disguising his voice, where he says, "Hey, I'm hearing that Dame Lillard is not wearing his mask."
I mean, Doc Rivers kind of joked about it. He said he's calling everybody in. He's just going to keep snitching on every guy out there and see. But more often than not, Dan, like the quarantine stuff, the NBA takes seriously, right? Like if you step outside the boundaries, they're going to come down pretty hard on you because they've got to protect the integrity of the bubble. But the face mask stuff, unless you do it like 10 times, the NBA is not going to sit you down. Like they're just going to keep calling you and warning you and reminding you that you have to wear your mask.
We brought this up first hour. Let's take LeBron out of the equation. Who's the face of the NBA?
I mean, I'd probably say it's Giannis, but Giannis certainly doesn't have the charisma or that face of the NBA feeling. I mean, in fact, like if you want to look at the next face of the NBA, and let's say for argument's sake, LeBron retired tomorrow, you might be kind of left in that void that was there when Jordan retired in the late 2000s. You remember, I mean, that was when Kobe was still pretty young. Tim Duncan was kind of the face of the league, but he wasn't face of the league, maybe material. Allen Iverson was there, but he didn't really embrace that role. I mean, there were 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years before Kobe Bryant kind of ascended into that role. I think we might have to wait that long for somebody to do it. I mean, maybe it's Zion, but Zion certainly isn't there yet. So I don't know who that guy would be at this point. You assume it's Giannis because of the MVP, the possible MVP. He's going to win again, but he's not a clear-cut name like it is LeBron.
When Zion comes back, what is the process that he has to go through?
I mean, it's a good question because nobody's really being specific with their answers when I ask this. Now, there are protocols in place, right, for this type of situation. If you have a medical emergency or an excused absence, which the Pelicans have indicated that's what this is, you come back and you undergo a 4-day quarantine. But when I ask the NBA what Zion's return protocols are, they're not giving me a direct answer. The thing I keep hearing is that the NBA needs to learn more about the specific circumstances about why Zion had to leave, which tells me that, maybe they're not fully in the loop about, why Zion decided to leave. So it's a minimum of 4, but it conceivably could be 7 to 10, depending on how the NBA rules on it. What I think is really interesting, Dan, is that, I mean, early in the season, TNT and ESPN loaded up on Pelicans games.
Yeah.
And then Zion was out, and you're like billing Drew Holiday versus LeBron James. They did it again, with this return. So, like, if Zion winds up missing, like the first week of the season, it's Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans versus whoever. I just think it's too bad, but it's kind of funny for those networks.
Ethan, who does a great job with our stats, sent me some numbers that back up your Shake Milton comment. Last 7 games before the NBA shut down, just under 20 points, 58% shooting, 60% from three-point range as well. So once again, Ethan doing a great job in supplying us with that stat. On what's wrong, McLevin?
First of all, I'm the Shake Milton guy. I'm like the world's biggest Shake Milton fan.
But
and now you're going to Ethan.
Ethan came to me. You could have said, hey, by the way, Dan, Mannix just mentioned Shake Milton. I'm a big Shake Milton fan. Here's some stats, but you didn't.
By the way, Mannix gave us a stat. Why did Ethan? Mannix
He didn't give us exactly what Ethan did. I went a little. Ethan is our stats guy. Remember when McLovin used to be our stats guy, Mannix?
Yeah, Perloff couldn't pick Shake Milton out of a lineup, so let's establish that.
Have you seen the Steph Marbury documentary? I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah, no, I mean I've seen the clips for it, but it's probably on the to-do list over the last 3 days in this bubble.
Yeah, but you have nothing to do. You're in the bubble. You should be watching some of these things. You're going to take a nap after you do this interview.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, I may take a nap today, but I've done some stuff. I've been relatively busy.
The Marbury thing is interesting because at the time, remember, Felipe Lopez was the big New York City legend. And then Marbury gets drafted by Milwaukee, gets traded to Minnesota for the rights to Ray Allen in a first-round draft pick. And if you look back, what could have been with Marbury and Garnett, and they were good friends, and he wanted to play with Kevin Garnett, and it just never materialized. Like, I look at Marbury as what could have been, not what was, but what could have been.
One of the great pairings that you just never know. And you look at the way Kevin Garnett's career went in the Western Conference. I mean, a player of that kind of talent only making it to one Western Conference Finals. I mean, that would not have been the case if Stephon Marbury was there. As kind of bonkers as Marbury went when he was traded to New Jersey and then Phoenix, then that disastrous end in New York. I mean, he was a different type of player in Minnesota. Like, they were on the rise out there. I think there's no doubt they would have at least made it to the finals during that era. And I don't know if Steph, I have to see the documentary. I'm not sure if he ever really regrets it or says he regrets it, but that's one of the great what ifs. If those two guys never stayed together, would they have been able to put together the kind of, successful pairing that we saw so many times over?
But if you look at trades the Bucks have made, so the Bucks get Ray Allen, they traded away Kareem, they traded away Dirk Nowitzki's rights for tractor trailer. Like, the Bucks have been involved in some pretty historical moves down through history here.
Yeah, that tractor trailer trade,
yeah,
maybe
that
not so
was,
good.
Not
but maybe
good.
I mean this sort of underscores why. And I mean, history probably doesn't have anything to do with it, but like, even if Giannis, even if they bow out in like the second round of these playoffs, they're not trading Giannis this offseason. Like, unless he tells them flat out, no, I'm not coming back there, they're not dealing this guy, because there's just simply no way you can get even close to measurable value in return. They're rolling the dice on Giannis being a part of this team long term.
But you don't think there could be a situation like Anthony Davis in New Orleans?
No. I mean, I guess anything's possible. I don't foresee that. I mean, there were, in the years prior to Anthony Davis making that trade demand, there were plenty of rumblings about dissatisfaction with what happened there. They made the coaching change. Davis was close to Monty Williams. That year they made the playoffs. So there was a build up to that. Up until this point, there's been nothing but happiness, as far as I've been told, with what Giannis feels about what they've done with that organization. They've supplied him with an elite coach. They've supplied him with the kind of roster that you succeed with a player of that caliber. So it would be a pretty significant 180 in my mind for Giannis to turn around and say, you know what, I'm done here. It's time to move on.
But do you think that Jason Kidd can actually sell to potential ownership of a team, hey, if you hire me as a coach, I can bring the Greek Freak? Do you think that that's part of the marketing strategy of Jason Kidd to become a head coach again?
I like Jason Kidd, if it is, and if you're an owner, I've got, something to sell you in Brooklyn. Like, that's not going to happen. He's not that influential in Giannis's life that Giannis would make a career-defining decision based on, going back to play for a coach that he spent some decent years with.
Good luck there. We're praying for you.
I mean, I don't, again, Dan, I don't mind the solitude. It's the food that's a problem for me. That's becoming troubling.
So beer and pizza?
I mean, yeah, I'm the world's pickiest eater. I don't eat cheese on anything. I don't want mayo on anything. And if somebody puts either one of those things on something, I won't eat it overall. So like this morning, I picked out the bacon from the meal. I took the fruit cup and I'm done. That might be my only meal of the day. Like solitude's fine. I mean, you know me, I don't really like people anyway. So if you just got me like a pizza delivery, I'd be cool here for weeks.
And vice versa, by the way, about you not liking people.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, let you know. All right. Good luck.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. That's Chris Mannix. He's a senior NBA writer, Sports Illustrated.